All right, so today we're going to be talking about SpiraPlan, but first, I just want to give you a bit of background on Inflectra, the company. For those who are not familiar with the company, Inflectra's mission is to help you, whether you're a customer now or hopefully a future customer, deliver quality software faster and with lower risk. And you can see right there in our company's mission statement, quality and risk, as well as speed, are the key factors that we think help you deliver better. And I think that's a key thing we'll see as a theme throughout this talk. How do you balance speed, quality, and risk? Because that's the holy grail of software development. So let's talk a little bit also about Agile, because SpiraPlan is our enterprise Agile planning solution. If you've been to some of the previous webinars on Spira Team and SpiraTest, those are very much tools geared at teams or smaller organizations potentially. SpiraPlan is what we target for larger companies or at least large numbers of teams working together. So let's talk a little bit about Agile before we get into the live application and how it all fits together. Now, Agile's been around for a while. Why are we seeing the need to scale Agile? What's driving that? Well, lots of things. First of all, we're seeing the companies have to deliver faster. We're seeing, and obviously continuous delivery, DevOps has increased the ability to do that, but we are seeing trends like increased regulation, data privacy and security. Every day of the week, I get emails about data breaches, about code supply chain problems, systems going down. The FAA had a notorious one of last week in the US, and there's other examples that you can read about every single day. I think Microsoft had an outage this morning. So we're just seeing speed, quality is becoming very complicated, and this global supply chain of software is very difficult to manage. Open source components are being used in other components. How does it all get managed? We're working with different vendors and suppliers. All the data is getting shared. How do we maintain privacy? And then, of course, you've got new technologies like AI and machine learning. I know everyone's been excited about ChatGPT, myself included, this last couple of months. So all of these trends are really changing how we do software and how do we balance risk, quality, and speed. So we'll come back to that. And how has Agile evolved to meet those challenges? Well, if you remember the Agile Manifesto back in 2000, it is that old. My daughter's actually studying this in university right now, and she's going to hate me mentioning this. And she's like, Dad, Agile's 20 years old. Why is everyone talking about it still? Because that's the problem. It was designed 20 years ago, and it's had to catch up with how its success has mean that we have to be able to scale it to meet the new challenges that it wasn't necessarily designed for. Agile was designed for a co-located team of about 10 people working together. If you read the original Embrace Change book by Kent Beck, it talks a lot about a team working together in a physical environment with a single customer that can make decisions. As you look towards larger programs and larger organizations and big systems, it's rarely the case that's the case. There's usually multiple teams working together on complex programs with maybe a program manager and 3 different product owners. And then, of course, if you take that one step further, you end up to portfolios of products where, and let's say you're a bank, you may have online banking, mobile banking, web banking, tools that are installed at the branch, tools on people's phones. You may have commercial banking, investment banking, mortgage products, third-party white label products. I mean, just in one industry, you've got such a complexity of all these systems that have to work together that the idea of one team working in isolation is really out the window. And then when you look at technology in the last 2 or 3 years with the pandemic, technology has become a key enabler to every business. Whether you're a food delivery company or restaurant, taxis, technology has upended almost every industry in the last 3 years. And so all the different products that belong to a company fit into the planning and the strategy of a company. And so, Agile, again, was designed with the idea of teams building products and software, delivering it fast with high quality and reducing risk. How do we expand that to a company delivering large numbers of strategic objectives and major programs comprising hundreds of products? How do we do that at scale and maintain quality, speed, and avoid risk? So that's the challenge. So one of the things we need to orient ourselves around is software needs to be thought more of as like a supply chain. If you think about when you buy a finished good from a supermarket or a store, from Target or some other retailer, what goes into that product is maybe hundreds of components from a giant supply chain that all works together to produce a high quality component that's released in the end. That's what software has become. It has become this networked supply chain of various different manufacturers and sub-manufacturers working together to give software products. And that network supply chain has to be managed, it has to be tracked, and how do you do that is the challenge. And that, if you look at this diagram, this really summarizes it nicely. You've got different products from different companies being meshed in with other products from other companies that they may even compete with to create other products that are delivered to end users. And then you've got the industry regulators and the data privacy authorities, which 20 years ago we weren't thinking about so much, who are also involved. If software goes wrong and it's in a self-driving car and there's a safety issue, someone's looked into that. Is it a software problem? Was it a hardware problem? Who's responsible? Same thing with aviation and other industries. We're seeing the supply chain of software being looked at very critically outside of the technology industry by lawyers, regulators. It's only going to get more complicated, and the risks to failure are only going to get higher. So that's a pretty scary environment we're working in. And so SpiraPlan is here to help. So SpiraPlan, we're going to talk a lot about the features. I'm going to show you a live demo, but I want to talk a little bit about the philosophy of SpiraPlan and how it's different. So first of all, SpiraPlan is part of the Inflectra suite. We've talked and demoed some of the other products in previous webinars, but SpiraPlan is really the core system that we have. SpiraTest and SpiraTeam are actually subsets of SpiraPlan. They're just subversions for smaller units. Repeaters for our automation tool, and then Chronodesk and SpiraCapture are basically add-ons that go with it. So really, SpiraPlan is the core of what we offer, and it is ultimately the enterprise version of a suite that started life as our test management tool, SpiraTest. It's been around for a while. That grew into our SpiraTeam agile planning and QA tool for team level and project level, and then SpiraPlan is the tool we're going to be doing today, which is really an enterprise focused product and includes things like program management and risk management that aren't in the other editions. And going back to our company philosophy, one of the key tenets that we believe as a company is in this complex world of integrated supply chains and risks and how do you balance quality and speed, we believe in harmony between these different things. So harmony is a key attribute that we believe we've infused into our products so that you as a user or as a customer deploying it, it makes your life easier, doesn't require you to become the person putting all these pieces together. So there are three ways we foster harmony across disciplines, through simplicity, and across ecosystems. Just to touch on each one quickly, across disciplines means we're looking at different disciplines when we build the functionality. When you see SpiraPlan, you'll see it's got functionality for testers, for developers, for managers, and beyond that, BAs, requirements people. It's got functionality for risk managers, PMOs, program managers, portfolio managers, directors of IT. It allows the system to scale at those different levels and ensure that all those different user groups and communities have the information they need to make good decisions. Simplicity is another key factor. The version I'll be showing you today is a pretty much out-of-the-box version. Anything that's been done that's not out of the box, I will mention, but pretty much everything you're going to see is, apart from I think a custom report I've got, you're going to see is literally what you would get if you were to sign up for a trial of SpiraPlan and turn it on and do nothing but just simply use it. And that's an important concept we have, is that we want the system to give value day one and not require you to spend weeks and weeks configuring it, getting plugins, getting consultants, delivering value day one. And the third aspect of harmony, we're not going to be focusing as much on this today, but SpiraPlan does integrate very well with other tools you may be using, whether that's Salesforce or ServiceNow for service management. It could be you're using the Atlassian stack, or GitLab or GitHub or Azure DevOps, whatever stack you're using, SpiraPlan will integrate with those. And even beyond that, different teams can use different tools. So when we get to look at the SpiraPlan system, I'll show you there are different workspaces like products and programs. Different products could be synchronizing their data with different tools on this list. So you could have some products using Jira, some products using Azure DevOps, other products that are using nothing but SpiraPlan itself. Others could be using GitLab or GitHub. Whatever it is that you're using, they can integrate with different products. And then you still have a top-down program-wide or portfolio-wide or enterprise-wide view of all that information. In addition to that, our mission, as I mentioned, is to help you deliver faster with higher quality and reduce risk. To do that, we are able to bridge these two worlds. The world on the right is the one of speed. The one on the left is to a large degree the world of quality and certainly the one of risk reduction. So we have functionality to help you deliver projects faster with CI/CD integrations, with code management, DevOps, it's all cloud-based, etc. On the left-hand side, we have functions to help you reduce risk with risk management, with approvals, sign-offs, reporting, baselining, risk management, more powerful requirements management and tracking, functionality to help you improve quality of your process and improve quality of your product. And then in terms of some of the specific features we have for different industries, this is just some examples that we have. We have e-signatures for life sciences. We have HIPAA functionality, so that way you can use it for a validated GAMP product. My colleague Shriyam has got a webinar coming up in a month or so about GAMP, if you want to learn more about that. We also have a lot of clients in the financial services industry and insurance industries. So the fact is that we can do on-premise, we can do cloud. It's a secure cloud. We've got risk management built in. We've got automated testing and compliance tools, traceability, key features for financial services. Similarly, for some of the safety industries like power plants, energy, automotive, aerospace, we've got a lot of functionality built in there for testing for public safety, particularly the quality and QA sides and the risk management side here are really important, and the risk-based testing. And for defense and aerospace, we have things that are unique to their industry, such as test step-level traceability, the ability to host our platform on our product on the AWS GovCloud platform, and some other features as well. But we have a lot of unique features there for aerospace, government, and defense clients. And here's some examples of some customers in those industries, plus some of the other industries we service. These are just some nice logos and examples. It's not the full set by any means. If you have more questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to one of our account managers who can discuss your needs in your industry specifically. And I've mentioned this already about the different industries we support, but these are some of the standards that we do comply with, various different ISO standards, 21 Part 11 for medical devices, the NIST standards for security, GDPR, we can host your data in Europe or other countries depending on your privacy rules that you need to follow. We are fully HIPAA compliant. We also support the 26262 automotive standard and the DO178C standard for airborne aviation systems. So these are just some of the standards that SpiraPlan will help you comply with. And of course, as I mentioned, SpiraPlan does fit into your ecosystem seamlessly. That's the nice sort of top level slide to give it a bit more detail. There's actually over 70 different integrations. This is not even the complete list. We have to update this. Things like test automation tools like Tosca, Test Complete, UFT, Load Runner, Neoload, Octoperf for performance testing, various project management and bug tracking tools, GitLab, GitHub, Jira, Agile DevOps, UTrack. We can import from various different data formats and other tools, integrate with different CI/CD pipelines, CircleCI, GitLab, GitHub, Jenkins. Various different code IDEs, we can integrate with various different unit test frameworks and so on. So that's, again, just a subset. But with SpiraPlan, we've already got these integrations built out. And more importantly, back to the idea of harmony and reducing risk, we support these as well. So if you choose SpiraPlan and you use these integrations, our support team not only provides support for the core SpiraPlan product, but also provides support for all these integrations as well, reducing your risk to deploy our product. So that is a very quick rundown of why you should look at SpiraPlan and some of the challenges in the industry. And now with that, we're going to jump over into the live application, because nothing beats a demo like the live application versus PowerPoint. So, and again, as Teresa mentioned, if you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A section of the window. That will be great. There is a chat window. Please put it, if you can, in the Q&A box instead, though it won't be a problem if you do the other one by mistake. Okay, so SpiraPlan, as I mentioned before, SpiraPlan is the top level version of our platform. And so when you go into when you first come into it and you sign in, you come to this My page where you can see some news, you can see information that we've released, events, product news, blogs and stuff. But the key is actually on this workspace menu at the top. So if you go to this workspace menu at the top, you will see the entire organization that is your organization. Now, this is a sample one that you'll get when you sign up. So we've got different industries shown. So here you can see I've got an enterprise view, which we're going to come back to in a second. And then under that, we have what are called portfolios. I'll just collapse them so you can see the different portfolios. And these, in this case, because it's sample, these are different industries. Depending on how you want to organize your system, these could be key departments of your company. They could be key value streams if you're doing value stream management. Under each of these industries, you would have then, in the example, programs. So in this example here, we've got our core systems portfolio. Under that, we've got our corporate systems program and our sales and marketing program. And then under that, we have the individual systems. In this example, we've got a ERP financial system. Think of it like if you're a big company, it could be Oracle Financials or SAP. For a small company, it could be QuickBooks. Again, the HR system, it could be PeopleSoft. It could be SAP, Oracle, who bought PeopleSoft. For a small company, it could be something like Gusto. And then for the sales and marketing, got the company website. Which you probably have two. CRM system, that could be a Salesforce, it could be a Pipedrive, it could be Dynamics 365, whatever is the platform you're using. These are different systems that you would have, and each one will have its own requirements, its own tests, its own workspace. But you want to obviously be able to track these and be able to report on them across these different portfolios and different programs. And if you look at some of the other industries, you will see exactly the same concept. Banking sector, you're going to see billing systems, core banking, mobile banking, web portal, and these are then grouped into programs and portfolios. So that's a typical organization, and you can have as many portfolios as you like, as many programs as you like, and then those roll up to the enterprise view. So if we were to look at an example, I'll look at our, first of all, look at our library information system, which is one of our samples. That's actually in the No portfolio. I just want to show you that one because it's got the most rich dashboard. And this is a product level dashboard. If I click on the hexagon over here, you will see a product level dashboard. So that's going to include the key metrics. So you're going to see, for example, for this one product, this one system, what are my top open issues? What's my recent activity? And then under that, we will see right away risk, because we believe risk is a really important and critical part of any software product and project. And here you can see my risk cube. We'll come back to where these come from a little bit later on, but this is the risk summary. So I can see here, what is my distribution of risk? In this case, most of my risks are in the left quadrant, but there are some catastrophic risks that are unlikely, but if they happen, will be pretty bad. So if I was just look at this product, I will be looking at this section here, the unlikely, catastrophic, critical, and the possible critical. And you can always click on this and it will bring up another tab. It will click, if I click on it, it's going to basically load right here the risks that go with it. And you can see I've got 3 risks that match that particular intersection, and you can then drill down and see why that is. Now we're going to come back to risks in a second, but everything in the dashboard is clickable, so you can do that to drill down where you need. Below that, we've got the risk register. That's going to show you the most exposed risks by exposure count. And then as well as that, for the rest of this product, you're going to see key metrics like what is our completion? And that's done by requirements. So when we talk about completion in Spira, what we're talking about is, has this feature, this requirement been developed, tested, and reviewed? So it's gone through all the steps to doneness as you define them in your methodology, and therefore it's ready. So it doesn't just mean it's been developed. Code is done, yay, let's release it. No, has it gone through if you're doing CI/CD, has it gone through the CI pipeline? Have all the automated tests passed? If it's going to go to CD, has it gone through deployment testing? Are we doing any manual testing, any exploratory testing? Has all of that been done? Has it been reviewed? Is it marked for going live? Whatever your process is, whether it's a daily release to production or it's a more traditional, slower process, each of these requirements we're going to track from inception, from ideation, all the way through to being released into production, and only then are we going to consider it done. So you can see here, that's our percentage done. And what we mean by done is, if I look at these active releases and active sprints, are the requirements in each of these active releases and sprints done? So it doesn't matter about things that are completed. If we finish the release and it's closed out, that's not included. If it's stuff that's planned in the future, not active, again, that's not included. It's of the active work, what percentage is done? And you can then drill that down by release and see, well, is that release behind or on track? All of these are massively overdue because this is my demo instance and I haven't updated the data in it for a while because I'm not using it for real. So we're just getting more and more overdue. If I saw this in a real project, I'd be very concerned. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, we're trying to balance speed and quality. So for each of those requirements, I'd like to know, can it be tested? Have they been tested? And with that, we have this requirements coverage graph and also this requirements incident count. So you can see what is the test coverage of my requirements and features, and also what are my defect coverage. And if I have lots and lots of defects like I do here, I want to probably drill down and investigate. In particular, when you see a couple of features that have a large number of defects, much more than the others, you'd want to drill down and see, is there a root cause that we should be identifying and working on? And there's other metrics on this, like, the burn down charts, burn up charts, velocity graphs, all of that stuff's available right here, incident count graphs, and all these other things. These are out of the box, but you can also create your own graphs and own widgets and publish those. You can also customize what you're seeing here. So again, this is just the out of the box version. There's also different things on the dashboard you can add and remove. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of that today. This is the product level view. As I mentioned, it's really important to think about how do we scale this. So how would we see that at a program level? Well, that's very easy. If I went to a program, let me go to one that's got a bit more information in it. Let me go to, actually, let me go to sales, the sample one first. So this is a program dashboard. It's similar, but now instead of being a single product like library information, we're now seeing multiple multiple products in the program. And it's a lot of the same information, but it's rolled up. We also have this schedule view, so you can see the schedule and completion for each of the products and releases and sprints that make up this program. So, and the risks are also now tracked at a program level. So we elevate the risks and the issues up to a program view. Now, if we want to see a portfolio view, that's also fine. Just click on core services. We now get a portfolio view. That gives you the name of the portfolio, what's the completion of the portfolio, are there any risks in this portfolio? They aren't right now, and what's the completion? And then lastly, you can go from a portfolio view to an enterprise view, which shows you everything in the entire system, all portfolios, all programs, all products, all releases, all sprints rolled up. Now, we're not rolling up some of the metrics, because some things we find they're micromanagement. We don't want to roll up every single task status or bug count. It's really important to show the right metrics. So we've put a lot of thought into showing you the right things that will help you make good decisions. So you can see for each of my portfolios, what's their distribution? Are they on track? Are they behind? We can show you the overall completion of the entire organization. This is every single active piece of work right now in the company. You can see it broken down by portfolio, and you can drill down, of course. You can see the key risks across the entire organization, which is a huge thing we need to know. You can see any CI events, and of course, you can then scroll down, and you can see here all of the portfolios, all the programs, and you can see the timelines in a roadmap view right here as well. So that's some of the reporting in the dashboards in the system. So that's really, really critical. Now, in terms of where does the data come from, currently in Spira, and we'll talk about the future plans at the end of this webinar, but currently this stuff comes from the product level, mostly, and rolls up to the program level. So if I was to go to a product, let's say library information system, when I go to the artifact menu, that's where you'll see all the different pieces of information that will be managed in the system and gets rolled up to those different levels. If I go to a program view, like sample program, you will notice that in the artifact menu, we do have a product view. So I can see all of the products in my program, and I can even manage these. So some features we've added last year include the ability to track the products as actual entities. So if you go into, say, one of the entities like the product, you can now track for portfolio and program management. You can track key information about each of these products. So as well as having a name and description, like you see in the drop down here, each product in the system can have metadata associated with it. And you can set these up as custom fields at the system-wide level. So for example, we're able to track of all these 5 different products that we're working on, which ones have to be HIPAA compliant, which ones have Sarbanes-Oxley impact, which ones are using Microsoft, which ones are using Docker, which ones are Oracle. Whatever it is you need to track, you can have basically information about the product stored here. We've also got things like rich text fields where you can have things like validation plans, escalation plans. So if you're a professional service company, you can actually manage all of the metadata about a system or a project right here in SpiraPlan. So you could define, the client names, the escalation plan, communication plan. You could define any information about the product. And if you go back to the product list page, you can slice and dice it. So if you want to find any of the products that have got a Sarbanes-Oxley impact, you can do that. You can show and hide different columns. You could, for example, if you're doing medical devices and some of the things, or medical products, some are GAMP, some are not GAMP, you could slice and dice it that way as well. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in managing different projects or products and being able to slice and dice them and track and categorize them in the system. So that's really cool. In addition to that, we've got a program level planning board. We'll come back to boards in a second. We've also got release views and also defect views, incident views, and you can see those across the entire program. Now let's go down to the product level then. At the product level, as well as all those, we do have a lot more functionality as well. So we have, first of all, requirements. So before we get into risks, let's talk about requirements, because requirements ultimately may drive risks or be driven by risks, depending on your approach. So SpiraPlan has multiple different views of requirements. So this is our document view. The document view lets you manage more of a traditional requirements approach, where you have functional specs, you have business requirements, system requirements, you might have use cases and scenarios. All of that can be designed right here. You can also use the scenarios for BDD, where you have different scenarios in each of these steps. And this is a document view, which a lot of clients need, because even though you might be using user stories, as we scale Agile, we're finding that user stories, although necessary, are not always sufficient for documenting the system, particularly if it's a more complex system with complex business rules or legal requirements that have to be met or statutory requirements. And so you can use the document view of requirements in Spira to manage all of those more complex non-user story requirements. We also have a QA view, which is like a hierarchy where you can see all the requirements in a tree view, and it's like your backlog. It's a backlog view where you can see all the requirements, and you can see in a tree structure, you can see each feature, you can see the test coverage that goes with it, the task progress, the priority. If we go to the board view, we also have, of course, Scrum and Agile and Kanban boards in the system. This is the requirements board here. You can see the different components. You can see the boards. You can see what's planned for each release if you want to use the boards. You can see the tasks, the test cases that go with each one. So you've got the ability to drill down. We also have a new planning board, which I'll show you, the bit which is going to improve the functionality even further in this area. And as well as that, we do have a mind map view. So for traceability, you can see how is this requirement related to other parts of the system and other requirements. And so you have this graphical traceability view in the form of a mind map. Okay, so that's some of the requirements planning. There's a lot of functionality and requirements. Again, for today, I can't go through all of it because this is again, a high-level overview. If you want to see more about the product, we're happy to do individual demos for customers, or if you're just interested, we can set a discovery call up to do a customized demo for you. In addition to the requirements view, though, we do have a planning board, and we do have a new board that's been released, which I can show you a quick preview of, which is super exciting. And this is what the new board looks like, where you can have different swim lanes, you can have multiple boards, you can have teams and tracks and be able to group by different teams. So for example, I might decide I want to look at release 1. I might be looking at say a release backlog. I might want to group by different teams, like my BA team, my dev team, my QA team. I can have priority as the columns and rows could be the people. So you can slice and dice it in different ways. And you can now see the story cards right here in these boards with different X and Y and different groupings. And you can see for each card, the name, description, type, status, the test coverage that goes with it. Which test cases, are they passed, are they failed? Look, this one failed, that's not good. These are my 3 tasks, they're all done. This is the certain critical priority, assigned to Joe. And of course, these boards are customizable. You can go in here and decide what information you want to see or not see. So again, for Agile projects, we've got boards, we've got Kanban, ability to do work in progress limits. For Scrum, we can do both requirements boards and task boards. Each requirement can be broken down into individual tasks. Again, the full Agile planning functionality. But that's just scratching the surface. As well as that, SpiraPlan does also have a centralized document repository. So obviously clients will want to store information about requirements or about tests or about tasks or about defects. Whenever you upload a screenshot or any document, it gets versioned right here in the system. And so you've got this central repository for content. In addition, you can also use the built-in text editors and graph editors and diagram editors to handle free-form content. This is just, I guess, some random markdown. Let me go to a different example. Here we go. We've got different diagrams here, but you can also have different content where you can use markdown and rich text. We also have the ability to do spreadsheets. So if you want to edit spreadsheets, we've got that right here in the tool as well. So it's a great central resource for managing team information. First to load. Yeah, there's a spreadsheet like that. So you can manage tabular data, textual data, and graphical data all in the system. Now, we're going to talk about risk in a second. One really important thing in Spira is that when you write your requirements and you develop them out, as well as having the requirements themselves, it's really important to be able to have the quality of those. So if I go to this one requirement here, if I just click on it, bring it up, if I go to the full screen view of it, we're going to see that for every single requirement, I'm going to want to have test coverage. So I can see right here, this is my requirement. These are the 3 tests that will validate it. Those could be automated tests, manual tests, exploratory tests. That's great. In addition to that requirement being linked to tests, I might want to link that requirement to risks or defects. When you run a test and it fails, we auto link the defects that are generated back to the original requirement. But we can also link risks. So here I've said, well, we've got this new feature, we've got a security risk that's linked to it. In fact, we've got this new library, maybe it's an open source library that's got some issue. There's a risk if we use that library, or maybe it's a library that's not being maintained anymore, but it does work. That's a risk. So we'll come to risks in a second, but it's really important to recognize that as well as managing tests and managing requirements, we can link those same things to the risks. Okay, I'm going to show you quickly tests, then we're going to jump into the code and the risks. So SpiraPlan is built on our test management tool, SpiraTest. If you've seen the lightning talk on SpiraTest, we talked a lot about how you can manage different test cases and automated tests, manual tests, compose them into test sets. I don't have time to do as much of that today. We can look at the recording of that if you're interested. But just to give a summary, SpiraPlan includes all of SpiraTest. So you get the ability to manage test cases, you get the ability to manage test steps. All of the steps can be linked to other test cases, so you can have reusable components. You can have parameterized test cases like here, where we're passing different test data through. You can also link automated scripts to the test case, so they can be run from Spira or from a pipeline, and they can report back, and you can have all the results in one place. To do that, you will typically compose these test cases into the test sets, which is right here, and that's how the testing is all orchestrated. You can schedule the tests on different machines for automated testing or assign to different people for manual testing. We've got a free plugin called SpiraCapture for exploratory testing. So that's how we do all the testing side of things. In addition, in SpiraPlan, we do have a full code management module. You can either use our built-in lightweight Git repository called Taravault, or you can connect it to another repository like Bitbucket, GitHub, or GitLab, which is the most common. Typically, GitLab and GitHub are the most common. You can then tie in also your pull requests and tie in your actions or pipelines or workflows. We've got plugins that enable you to launch a GitLab pipeline or a GitHub action directly from Spira, get the results back in. So we've got full integration both at a code level, an issue level, and effectively a pipeline level with those products, which is really nice. But the good thing is you've also got still a centralized view where you can look at a certain piece of code and you can see the history of that code. You can see when it changed, who changed it, what was changed, and you can see what work item it was linked to. So if I go back to that change, why did we change that code? Well, it was to implement this feature. It was to implement that task. You can see right here why we did it. And that's really important from a traceability and auditability. People are getting very concerned about risks, about if we use some library that someone changed, well, why did they change it? Are they introducing malware, or is the functionality changed in a negative way? Some clients now will only accept code if every single commit can be tied to an actual requirement or test or defect or other or task item. That's becoming more common in the industry. So again, it gives you the ability to very quickly audit your code and see why did we change these things. And at Inflectra ourselves, in our teams, we actually do the same thing. Inside of SpiraPlan, when we commit new code with SpiraPlan, every single commit's going to be tied to a requirement, task, or defect in our own SpiraPlan. So we practice what we preach. Okay, that's code management. We could go spend all day on that, but let's not do that. We also have a full defect tracker and issue tracking system. Track issues, track incidents, track bugs, track change requests. All that can be tracked here. We've got grid views. We've got a board view, so you can see that as well in the board view. You can sort, you can filter, you've got custom fields, you've got workflow. You can view them at a program level, product level. All good. But now, let's talk about risks, because that's what we're here for, right? So risks are a key part of the system. They are not just simply types of issue. A lot of other products typically have considered risks to just be a bug type or an issue type. And that does them a disservice. So SpiraPlan risks are a first order artifact. They're like requirements or like test cases. They have their own functionality and they are distinct from requirements and distinct from issues. They are their own thing. So if I was to create a new risk, which I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to create a risk. So this risk is, there's for example, we are using Java 1.7 and it is no longer being updated. Again, I don't know if that's true. I'm making this up, but imagine that was a risk. That is certainly a real risk. something like that. That's a technical risk. These types of risk are customizable. We've identified the risk. That's all we've done right now. If we know where that lives, it affects a component. Yeah, it affects the book management module. We're using Java in that piece. Does it affect a specific release? Yeah, we're using it in the latest release, so we know it's affecting the latest release. And I might describe in here why. I'm just going to put, X, Y, Z. I don't need to write all that out, but we have a rich text editor. You could put in a nice paragraph, descriptions, bullets, whatever you think helps to elucidate this. You can attach documents to it, screenshots, whatever is needed to fully explain the risk. And again, I won't do that right now. Great. Well, now we've identified the risk. What do we do next? Well, we might want to we could reject it and say, we're getting rid of Java, we're going to use .NET or Node, so completely irrelevant. But let's assume that's not the case. Let's analyze the risk. So we would assign it to someone to analyze it. I'm going to assign it to me just to avoid having to reassign and log out. So I've assigned it to myself. But the system is now saying, in order to analyze it and mark it as analyzed, past tense, I have to actually put in a probability and an impact. So what's the probability? Well, what's the risk actually? So actually, this is not really a full risk. We're using Java 1.7, it's not going to be updated, so we won't get security updates. That's the real risk. Because not being updated is not necessarily a problem. I think the risk is really that we won't get security updates. So what's the probability of a security update affecting us? What's the problem with, well, what's the probability? The probability of a update not happening with a security vulnerability existing is pretty likely. If we look at any product, there's bound to be some vulnerability. And the impact would be critical because it would be a vulnerability that we couldn't patch without changing the version of Java, which we have to test for. Hit save. So we've now ranked it as a probability and an impact. And we've given it an exposure 12. Now you can also go into associations and say, well, let's look at the requirements we have. Does it impact any of the requirements? And I don't know if it does. Java. Oh, system written, yeah, okay, let's link it to that one, for example. So there's a maintainability issue, so it affects that requirement. Okay, great. So now we've linked it to a requirement. Next thing we would want to do is think, how do we mitigate it? So let's go ahead and evaluate it. And we're going to add a comment saying, yeah, let's evaluate this and say, yes, this is a valid issue. We would be impacted by the security or lack of security updates, like that. Hit save. Good. Oh, I need to review it, so it's going to prompt me for a review date. We'll review it Monday. So let's get it's walking me through the risk management process. So the next thing is we'll do what's called treating the risk. So to treat the risk, which is to move it, which means we have to basically try and mitigate it, and then it's considered an open risk that's mitigated. So we'll do that by adding what are called mitigations, which are things that reduce the risk. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first mitigation would be we could switch to Java 1.8, and then we will get updates. Okay, that's a mitigation. It's valid. Okay, let's save it. We'll create a second one. Usually there's more than one. Doesn't have to be, but often there's more than one. The second mitigation would be we could sign a contract with Oracle to get extended support. Well, that would be good, maybe. Hit save. We now have two mitigations. So now, based on these two mitigations, we now reevaluate and we mark it as treated. So then we mark it as treated. We would now say, okay, based on the mitigations, there are two of them. Let's say we will, how probable is this? Well, the fact is that we can either update it. Well, updating requires work to test, so we should probably link it to a test to do that, make sure everything works. So, but if we're assuming we do that, which we'll do in a second, then the probability now is much less likely. It's unlikely, in fact. And the impact, because we've got a support contract with Oracle, even if 1.7 does get a bug, they will fix it. So the impact now is probably marginal. So we hit save. We probably would give a comment. Why? We can force a comment if we want. The two mitigations reduce the impact and probability as specified. And what we might even want to do is say, okay, that's great, but let's add a new test to verify it works under Java 1.8. I don't have a test written for that, so I'll just link to this sample one. Pretend that's a test. Test under Java 1.8. Because if it works under Java 1.8, then we can go back to this and even reduce it further, maybe even close the risk completely. But until we've done that, it certainly is still an open risk. And we can go back here and we can change the review date, add a comment, and so on. Now, the other thing is we might want to decide action tasks. Now, the test case is already defined, so that's going to be done by someone. But we also might want to take one of these mitigations, and we would want to assign tasks. So let's create a task. I'll just create 2 tasks. Development task would be, update the code to use Java 1.8, and they'll test for that. And the second task would be, let's go here. It would be sign a contract or get a quote from Oracle for the contract. And that's not a technical task, that's a project management task. So I'll put that here under management. And we've assigned a release to it. We've assigned some stuff here in priority. We could set those values. I haven't done that, but you would do that normally. And now those tasks go into my project plan. So if I now go back to my project plan, tasks, you will see we have tasks in here that come from the requirements, but we also have tasks that come here from the risks. And so all of these tasks go into here and then will become part of the project plan. And if you were to go, there you go. And if you go in here, you would see there's the task right there. And you could filter. I only want to see the development tasks. I want to see the management tasks. And if I wanted to start planning those out, I can use my standard task planning features to be able to put those into my board and assign them to release. So here you can see my task management functionality. We've got support for task management for Agile projects using Scrum boards. We have project management for waterfall projects using a Gantt chart. So here's the exact same view in a waterfall view. So again, depending on what methodology you're using, you can see different tasks and different approaches, and we support those in the system. So that's taking the output of the risks and feeding that back into my project plan. So again, risks are really important. They should be managed, but they should not be managed in isolation. You can see how we've written risks. We've linked it to a requirement. We've linked it to a test case. We've created tasks from it. We can link it to code. So we can actually see that risk as part of the holistic project management methodology and the program and portfolio management. It's not just a separate risk stored in a spreadsheet. And too often we see that. Companies have got tools to manage tasks, they've got tools to manage projects. All the risks live in a spreadsheet and they're not connected to anything. And they're certainly not rolling up to the program and portfolio levels to get visibility. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you, and everything you've seen right now is out of the box. The one thing I did do, which is not out of the box, is I created a custom report, and I took the report that's on our website. We've got a knowledge base. If you go to our website and you go to our knowledge base here, we have a lot of custom reports available, Spira custom reports. And I took one of the custom reports, I just put it into my instance so I could show you today, because I wanted to show you a requirements, risk, and test case exposure report. This is where I got it from. I literally followed the instructions in here and pasted in this custom report. So it's not out of the box, but it's pretty close to it. And then I went in here, and if I go back to my project, because one of the things we're often asked is, well, I've got all these risks and requirements. Wouldn't it be great to see a requirements report to see which of my requirements are impacted mostly by my risks? So I could do that. So just from data in the system, I can now generate a report, which I'm just going to run it quickly to show you, all of the requirements and what's their risk exposure taken from the risk matrix. And there you go. That's the most exposed risk, followed by these ones, but a much lower level. And of course, because requirements are linked to test cases, I can do the same thing at the test case level. And I haven't tested this to see if any data will match. Hopefully it will. But if it does, we should be able to get a test case aggregate exposure. So for risk-based testing, if I only have time to run a certain number of test cases, these are the ones I should run. So according to this, if I can only run one test case and one test case only, because it's going live tomorrow, I should run test case 2. If I only have the time to run 6 test cases, I should run these 6. And that's how you can use the risk management module of SpiraPlan to help you with your requirements planning, your validation, and your testing. And so, as we're now at 10:45, I think it's a good time to switch over to questions. So, Teresa, what questions do we have from the audience?
Awesome, Adam. Thanks so much for that presentation. We do have a few questions from the audience. The first one is, different industries have different processes for managing risks. Different types of risks. Does SpiraPlan support such processes for different types of risk?
Great question. So SpiraPlan out of the box is loaded with a methodology that we've defined in the template based on what's called Prince2. It's one of the more common risk methodologies. So if I go into risk workflow, you would see that in there. wait for it to load a second. The other thing I would mention is there's different methodologies, but there's also some different factors, which I'll come to. So one thing is when you go into the risk methodology, this again is based on Prince 2, you might decide that we're going to use a different set of steps, a different set of names, and a different set of phases of your risk management. So the first thing is you can always go in here and you can rename all the steps, you can add steps, remove steps, change all the verbs and all the actions. You might also want to capture different information as you move from step to step. What we have in here out of the box is a relatively simple workflow. So for example, when I analyze the risk, it required me to fill in certain fields. I required these ones here: the impact, the probability, the release, the owned by. I didn't require a comment. I didn't require some other stuff like review date. You could definitely change this to match that part of the methodology. The second thing is, for those who are very well versed in risk management, you will notice that we have two factors for managing the risk. We have the impact and the probability. So probability, and we have impact right here. Now, some methodologies like FMEA, which certain industries use, they have a third factor called detectability, and we do support that. That's done using what's called Spira apps. That's our plugin architecture. We have a free plugin that you need to enable for FMEA risk testing. So you would activate FMEA. I haven't done it on this instance, so I won't show it to you fully. We have a blog we can share if anyone's interested, but it lets you enable a third factor, which is detectability. So if I go back to my project now, yep, I will have an additional factor that I can set up in my Spira app and define the probability. So what you'll do is you go into these Spira apps, you go to the settings for FMEA, you enable it, and you basically will define a custom property for risk priority number and a drop-down list of detectabilities, and you can then set thresholds, and it will add a widget that will let you see those on the dashboard. So we do support FMEA style risk management where you have a detectability, probability, and impact. The other thing around methodologies is if you go into the risk section, some methodologies are very keen to understand the different values of the exposure over time. So if you look at my most recent risk, which is the one I just created, so let me just search by most recent date. Here we go. I'm showing you the exposure right now as 4. Many methodologies are going to want to know what is the historical, particularly like clinical risk management and risk validation. What's the previous exposure? So if you go to the history, you would see here that the exposure has gone from 12 to 4 as I move the impact and probability values down. So not only do you get the exposure as it was when it was first created, but you also get the history of the exposure and how it changes as you add mitigations. Or if the mitigation was to fail, that might move the exposure back up again. And then lastly, I would mention that if you use this with baselining, which I'm not going to show you today, we haven't got time, but baselining lets you snapshot the whole system. You can create a report of everything that changed between the snapshots. So you could see how the risk exposure changed between snapshot 1 and snapshot 2, as well as everything else in the project, how it changed. So it let you see an integrated view of everything that changed.
Awesome, Adam. So you did address one of the other questions that came up, which was about the detectability piece. So thanks so much for grabbing that.
You're welcome.
There's another question here. My company has a more detailed breakdown of risk-like levels, like going to for a total of 8 different scores there for both severity and probability. Does your tool support multiple levels like right there? So I see there's only 4 critical marginal.
Yeah. Those levels are all customizable. So if you go into probability or impact, we out of the box define 5, I think, impacts, probabilities, and 4 impacts. You can add a different statuses and have more levels, correct, and different score values for them, different colors.
Awesome. Folks, I don't see any other questions. Any other attendees have additional questions about risk or about any of the content for Spira that
one thing I wanted to mention while we're waiting, if we wait for any more to come in, one thing to mention is forward-looking. We are from a program, not so much risk management, but program management. We've talked a lot about programs and portfolios. Right now within Spira, the current version, as you saw, most of the work is done at the product level, like requirements and the tests and so on, and we roll those values up to the portfolio and the program level. What's on our roadmap coming up, and it's very exciting, is what we call our scaled agile extensions. So SpiraPlan today could do essential safe, it could do large solution safe to some degree. What we're adding is functionality to take it all the way to do the whole thing, and we're doing that by supporting requirements and release type things, release trains basically, and value streams, and what we're going to be calling them capabilities and strategic objectives and milestones, and they will be requirements and release-like artifacts at the program and portfolio level. If you want to see more about that, go to our newsroom, and we do have a product roadmap which has some early screenshots. I mean, very small, like this, just the navigation, but we're going to have basically at the program level, as well as having the ability to see a board, you will have the ability to see, and the products in the program, you will be able to see what we call capabilities and milestones. Capabilities are basically going to be higher level requirements. You can think of them as like a solution backlog or solution epics or features if you're thinking safe. We're going to call them capabilities, though, to avoid using the word requirement and confusing everyone. We're going to have milestones, which will be like releases, but they'll be at the program level. And we decided to go with program milestones rather than program increments, but it's the same thing. So if you're used to safe terminology, capabilities are like solution epics and solution features, and program milestones are the same as a program increment, just to give you some sort of terminology. And then at the portfolio level, which is really for full safe, we're going to have what we call strategic outcomes, which is a strategic level requirement, which is really like a requirement. So it's like a, you call it like a portfolio epic or portfolio feature. We decided to give it a different name to avoid confusing people with the other requirements that we have and the other epics that we have. So strategic outcomes will be effectively a top level thing that you need to accomplish, which will then be delivered by programs and delivered by features and epics at the product level. And then similarly, we'll have a portfolio milestone, which will be like a portfolio increment in safe language. So the idea is, as SpiraPlan will let you do top-down planning as well as bottom-up. Right now, it's mostly bottom-up. So this is what's coming in the next year to 2 years, depending on which level. Feel free to look at this document, look at the full roadmap. We'll be doing more webinars as we start to release this functionality over the year, but it's a key part of what's in the next 2 years worth of SpiraPlan development, along with major revamping of all the Agile boards. I already showed you the revamped planning board. We're in the process of revamping the task board and the requirements board, and we will be doing the same thing for the incident boards. And these will all be coming out also this year. So there's a lot of functionality coming out this year on the SpiraPlan side of things, as well as on some of it on the Spira team side of things.
Awesome, Adam. While I don't see any other questions, I do see some great positive comments on that sneak peek that you gave for upcoming functionality for that top-down planning. So I think we can go ahead and conclude today's webinar. Just a couple of things to note. We plan to continue some lightning sessions. So we've done some in the past. You can certainly catch up and find those recordings online. We do have another webinar series, Journey into Risk Management, and that's coming up in a couple months' time, beginning on March 29th. The first one will be event will be focusing on embedding GAMP compliance into digital health software, and that'll be hosted by our own enterprise agile evangelist, Shriram Rajagopalan. So make sure to mark your calendars and keep an eye out for that. We'd also love to invite you to attend InflectraCon. That's our Agile Testing and DevOps conference right here in DC. It's coming up in April of this year, the 19th to the 21st. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste the link there in the chat window. So feel free to join us for that conference. We're looking forward to meeting customers and getting lots of interesting speakers as well. So with that, thank you so much, Adam, for your presentation today. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you at the next lightning session.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye now.